My question, I think some of the new ways of gathering data are really, really important, but the question I ask myself is how do you get people to listen to the information, and how do you convert information to knowledge to action on the ground? So what I'm going to be talking about today is a 2-year research project that we led in the province of British Columbia and across my university, Royal Roads University, colleagues at the University of British Columbia, and colleagues at Simon Fraser University. And we studied 11 climate change innovators across the province of British Columbia as part of our research. And many of us refer to British Columbia as a living laboratory for sustainability. I don't know if that's the arrogance of the mountains and the beauty of the ocean, but we do feel that we are sort of leading the way for many different reasons. The drivers of innovation are innovative legislative and policy framework. We've had extraordinary provincial leadership in policy implementation, and it's been smart policy implementation. Framing the issue in the case study communities and among the innovators was critically important in moving up, ratcheting up the ladder towards deeper sustainability actions. Strategic partnerships and alliances, the province has a number of them, and I'm not going to go into them because I don't have the time in the interests of dialogue. Policy coherence and policy alignment between the provincial government and the local government. And we were heavily involved in best practices sharing. I'm going to dance through the policy framework. And all of this is available on websites and also available on our website, which is www.mc-3.ca. So in terms of the legislative and regulatory framework, Bill C-27 was introduced. The Green Communities Act requires all BC local governments to set greenhouse gas reduction targets at the municipal and district level. That was complicated, and you can start seeing the policy alignment starting here. Utilities Commission Amendment Act encouraged all public utilities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, take demand-side measure, and produce, generate, and acquire electricity from clean or renewable resources. The BC Climate Action Charter, and I must emphasize this is voluntary, committed all local governments to become carbon neutral in their corporate operations, to understand and use and measure and create energy inventories. And as of today, 180 of BC's 188 local governments have signed the charter. And then the next instrument, the carbon neutrality, was mandatory for all public sector organizations. They had to measure operational greenhouse gas emissions, reducing those where possible, offsetting the remainder, and demonstrating leadership through public reporting. So then they also decided that there was no way this was going to happen without offering, first of all, educational tools, measurement tools. So, and those tools are the Climate Action Incentive Program, which reimburses the carbon tax for local governments who have signed the BC Climate Action Charter. Those municipalities and regional districts annually measure the carbon footprint of their corporate operations and publish information about their corporate and community-wide sustainability actions each year through these reports. In addition, another charter commitment is for local governments to measure and report on their community emissions profile data, from on-road transportation to building energy use to municipal solid waste management through the inventory. The Community and Energy and Emissions Inventory establishes baseline inventories. So for my economic colleagues, what is measured is managed. Then there's 2 tools, just to mention, and then a network formation. So what did we learn from our case study communities? First of all of them started with energy. They started to get energy right. Many of them have district energy systems in place, landfill, gas capture, waste to energy, et cetera, organic diversion. So entrepreneurial new utilities and ways of working. Strategic alliances, partnerships, and regional networks. Not one of the community innovators did not have some sort of external partnership or alliance with outside funding agency. We have the, including FCM, ICLEI, so they were beyond the province, but within the province we have the Fraser Basin Council, we have BC Hydro Energy Managers Program, where they actually paid, and this was particularly important for small and rural communities, to put in place an energy manager. Because sometimes, often in my opinion, it's not just about the money, but it's about, for the smaller and rural communities, access to that intellectual capital that doesn't necessarily reside. So once an energy manager is placed in these small communities, then they start gathering the data. They start getting the information, and we start moving forward. Innovative financing solutions. A small town, Fernie, BC is a really, really small town. It has a $75,000 energy reserve, and it put it in place 3 years ago. So now we have over 40 local governments now have green revolving funds. So this is starting to really show and demonstrate the business case that makes sense despite the initial capital investment. Because of course everything we're talking about is long-term. One municipality or local government, the City of North Vancouver, has implemented a national capital accounting system. So there's all sorts of local innovations happening. The governance factors are alignment between staff and politicians. Those communities moving farther ahead are where you've got political alignment with the staff alignment and you move forward. Leadership, therefore, at multiple scales is critical for policy, for climate action innovation. Systematic frameworks for policy making and implementation, and particularly the measure, the reduce, and affect. Institutionalization within the larger sustainability agenda, ratcheting, connecting the energy efficiency measures with their reporting plans, ICSPs and official community plans, and ultimately, ideally, integrating OCPs and ICSPs. And in one case, there's a community that has integrated the disaster management planning with their sustainability office. And then the role and function of the sustainability office in many of these communities is critical to implementation, whether they see their role as implementing or they see their role more as influencing and measuring, as influencing and trying to inform across the institution rather than doing. So once again, that is a leadership role. So how do we accelerate innovation? Once again, framing the issue, and framing the issue in terms of place space. What's important? What's the particular community context? And what is important to the elected officials? And then capitalizing on extreme events. For example, in one municipality, there was a flood. So councillor who happened to be more on the sustainability side took the mayor to see the flood and used that as an opportunity to inform and educate. Peer-to-peer learning exchanges are critically important for best practice sharing. And this is something we did through, and I haven't got time to talk about our knowledge mobilization activities, but part of our research was to start mobilizing and transferring our knowledge as it happened on the ground. So we brought together over 60 our community leaders with policymakers, with the research team, and we bridged across the silos and the stovepipes. So we brought together, deliberately planned and brought together engineers with the planners who hadn't normally talked together, and were able to accelerate information that way. Another thing that we have been continuing to do is to lead virtual mayors conversations online. And these are being proven to be the biggest bang for our buck. What we have done is we create a safe place for them to share, and we have some, it's not proven evidence, but some communities that weren't implementing climate change are now starting to move forward. So what we do is we bring them online over noon. We have to call them the lunch hour conversation. We offer to buy their lunch if they want us to buy their lunch. And we bring together mayors in a safe place. And we have also used the technique now of bringing the mayors from a previous conversation into the new conversation, and that then accelerates. Plus, we all know adults learn from their peers. And so this is accelerating a lot of innovation. And once again, this is being funded by BC Hydro. It's quite an innovative program. It's difficult to do. I'm delighted to say that we will now be going back into our case study communities and looking at how their current development paths and how to transform those development paths. We will be assessing their progress in scanning their greenhouse gas reductions and other things that we have been doing, and assessing the province's policy framework and incentives program and how effective they have been. And that will be the next 3 years of our program. I look forward to discussing BC's innovation with you further.